How's it going, everybody? It's Catfish on Ice, episode 247 with Chad Minton and Max Greenberg, your host. How you doing, Max?
Not too bad. What about you?
Doing as good as I deserve. It's been a rough week. It's as we all know, Mother Nature took its course this week. Hurricane Helene just ravaged the entire southeast coast, not just Florida. Normally, when you hear about hurricanes, you only hear about the coast, but it rocked its way up through Georgia, hit the Tennessee, North Carolina border, did damage in South Carolina. It's just been an awful storm. And so a lot of people are hurting tonight. A lot of people have lost a lot of things. So before we get into the hockey talk and everything else, I just want to let everyone know that our thoughts are with and prayers are with everyone who's been affected by Hurricane Helene. And, me being down here in St. Petersburg, Florida, just like a couple miles from the Gulf of Mexico, was very scary for me. I am extremely blessed and fortunate that only received minor damage. But, I've got very close friends who have literally lost everything. They've lost their homes. We're talking 8 to 10 feet of rising storm surge water. Basically, the ocean swept away their house. And then thinking about what's going on in Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, flash flooding. And it's really sad. It's really hard. A lot of people are hurting tonight, and they can't even think about something like hockey because of what they've been through. And so we just want to start with that and just let them know that we're thinking about them. We care about them. And I want to put on the screen some ways for people to just do what we do as Americans, and that's help each other out during times of crisis. And, I'm seeing it down here right now in Florida where people are just picking up the pieces. The entire beach communities down here are completely lost. People's businesses, people's places of employment, they have no jobs right now. Very, very just really awful stuff. And so I want to put it on the screen right here. This is just one of the best ways to get involved and help people. You can help Hurricane Helene victims through the American Red Cross, who offers food, shelter, supplies, emotional support to victims. So you can see the American Red Cross, the Salvation Army provides food, drink, shelter, a lot of the same things. United Way, GoFundMe, the World Central Kitchen, All Hands and Hearts. There are so many ways. AmeriCares. Of course, you can offer your own volunteer duty by going out there and doing whatever you can if you're in those impacted communities. But we just want to make sure everyone knows that our fellow Americans are hurting tonight. And so any way that you can help, if possible, please do that. But we just wanted to let them know for sure before we get into the talk about hockey and trivial things that we were thinking about all those people tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm over here in the Nashville area. Thankfully, I wasn't affected too much. I was able to go into work all of last week. I was just fine. We definitely got some rain here, but obviously, Chad, you were fortunate too. And my grandmother lives more inland Florida. She was fortunate too, from everything I hear. But it just is. It's a really, really tough thing, and a lot of people, of course, were not fine. Thankfully, everyone I know has been okay. But again, it's just really awful stuff that fortunately you can't control. And just like you said, there's ways we can let people know that we're thinking of them and all that stuff right there.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to move along here. We wanted to let everyone know about that, and let's try to talk about some lighthearted stuff here, and that is, of course, hockey. Nashville Predators, they're in the midst of their preseason right now, so we're going to get into some preseason storylines. A lot going on, Max, even though it's the preseason, and we're going to have our own debate later on in the Quick Hitters segment about kind of my disdain for the preseason. I'm just going to be honest about it. But a lot of good stuff's happening in the preseason. I don't like to focus on final scores or the record, the win-loss record, all of that stuff. That stuff is just kind of like, doesn't really matter too much. I want to see, is chemistry being built? how are newcomers looking? So guys like Jonathan Marchessault, which we're going to get into him in a second. And of course, the biggest thing you want to see in preseason is how is your highly touted, talented prospects looking?
Yeah, absolutely. And so far, the Preds have definitely gotten a few of those. I'm sure we'll get into the names, but there have been a few guys who we've seen, and one of them we're going to get into who right now looks like a prospect, but actually could make the opening night roster. But yeah, we'll get into all that too. But because there's some standouts.
Definitely. And we're going to also get a little bit deeper into it and talk about training camp and some players who are really sticking out. The player that Max is alluding to, and I'm sure a lot of our diehard Predators fans out there already know who we're talking about. We'll get into him, but also some other things we're seeing in training camp, of course. Because if you ask me, I think training camp is really the meat and potatoes of the preseason, and the games themselves is just kind of for the coaches to see it in action. You know, they want to see, okay, this is what we've been working so hard in training camp for, the stuff that doesn't really make the highlight reels, the stuff that doesn't really get talked about a lot. And let's see if you can put that onto the ice. That's what's most important for head coach Andrew Brunette going into his second year with the Predators with insanely much higher expectations than year one. I like to say this all the time. The honeymoon period is over. We enjoyed it. He got the team to the playoffs, which was great. But, you know, I don't think there's any reason to be worried about Andrew Brunette's coaching prowess. But at the same time, he's going to be subject to a lot more criticism throughout this season. Just buckle yourselves up because it's year 2. And the honeymoon is definitely over, and it should be over. He's had a full year with this team. He's got Barry Trotz, the general manager, has given him the tools necessary to go out there and do something special this season. That's the general manager's job, is to give the head coach the tools necessary, the players necessary, the talent necessary to go out and not just make the playoffs. You know, we don't care about – I mean, we care, but it's not – what some of these other teams out there, they're like, yeah, we want to see progress. If we make the playoffs, it would be great. Of course, that is not even close to being the benchmark for the Predators this year.
Not at all. You know, last year you had all this stuff like if you make the playoffs, great. You know, we want to see progress. You know, we want to see kind of where we are as a team. But now, you know, the expectations are you got to make. So last year, you know, in a way, Brunette, you know, overcame the expectations, but now when you overcome expectations, now you have to live up to them. And we'll see hopefully overcoming expectations doesn't, in effect, cost him his reputation as head coach because now he's got pressure on him.
Definitely. Also, it's our season debut of Battle for the Central Power Rankings. We've been doing this for the entire life of the podcast, and we're bringing it back. It's a weekly segment where we do the Central Division Power Rankings. Previous co-host before Max, Rich Howe, our good friend, he used to love the power rankings because me and him would always be so far apart. It would be like two completely different, just like thoughts on how to come up with these power rankings. But it was fun, and doing it from week to week is really difficult. But we are going to do our preseason Battle for the Central Power Rankings. I've got mine that I'm going to put on the screen. Max is going to critique him, give us his. And this is setting the table for going into the season, and these rankings are subject to change, and of course they will, as every week goes by in the regular season. So that'll be a lot of fun. I got a few surprises for you. I didn't stick with the status quo necessarily, so that'll be fun to reveal to the fans and to the listeners. And we got to get into quick hitters. That's another segment we do throughout the regular season. Our quick hitter segment is when we hit a couple quick topics and get some lively debate. I want to talk about Luke Evangelista a little bit. And, of course, I want to talk about – it's really coming up among NHL circles right now, and that is – and it happens among all of the major sports, really, not just hockey. But, you know, I've never really seen the debate get that heated in hockey, but maybe it's time to do that. And that is – how badly do we really need the preseason? That's really what I want to get into with Max. Of course, Patrick Laine took that really nasty injury. Yeah. And, I mean, do you really want to see the superstars of your game getting knocked out and missing significant time, especially when you think about a sport like hockey, the NHL, where they're trying to build their interest level among national audiences, and you need your superstars to be available, and you definitely don't want to lose them. You don't want to lose anybody in the preseason. Whether they're let me just say that, but definitely when your superstar players are going out in preseason games, not a good look for the NHL, especially when you have such a brutal, physically demanding sport.
Yeah, you never want to see injuries anywhere, and there's definitely, I would say, before we get too much, I definitely think there's some parts of it that are necessary in some reasons, but again, we'll get into the big debate later on, isn't it necessary as it is?
For sure. We're going to do the Preds stat of the week. We got a good one that got released today that I want to unpack a little bit more. And then to wrap up the episode, because we are already 4 weeks now into the NFL season, and the Titans get the Monday Night Football stage against the Miami Dolphins. They're 0-3, but we got to do Titans time with Max, and he's got to tell us that everything's going to be okay and to step away from the ledge. I think that's what Max needs to do tonight for our Titans.
Try my best.
He's going to try his best. That's all we can ask for. All right, episode 247 of Catfish and Ice is presented by BetterHelp and DraftKings. Tell you more about those awesome sponsors later on in this episode, but of course, those are two OG sponsors that we are so incredibly thankful for sponsoring the Catfish and Ice podcast and every podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network, which is, of course, what we are a part of. All right, Max, let's get into the opening face-off, and that is our preseason storylines. The first thing I want to get into is, of course, this past weekend, Preds get a 6-0 win. Again, I don't like to fixate on final scores,
right.
But 6-0 is that still stands out.
And they played like it too. I was at the game, and they were dominant from start to finish.
Stands out for sure. So Max was there, so he's gonna really give us the live perspective of it. And of course, let's talk first about this. So they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 6-0. Okay, so we opened the episode talking about the hurricane and everything, and it did postpone the Friday night preseason game that was supposed to be in Tampa. So Thursday when the storm came through, I work at a hotel in downtown St. Pete, and I stayed at that hotel because it's in a non-flood zone, and it's the entire, if you know St. Petersburg and Tampa Bay in that area, St. Petersburg is on a peninsula, which is called Pinellas County, Clearwater Beach, Treasure Island, all that. And that is basically the highest, where I stayed in this hotel is the highest point of the peninsula. So if that goes under, it's like apocalyptic, it's bad. So that's where I ended up riding out the storm. But I woke up on Friday morning, I hadn't seen any news about whether they were going to play in Tampa for a preseason game, and Tampa got rocked as well with storm surge, including around Amalie Arena. And so I was thinking, there's no way they're going to have this game. First of all, Tampa Bay Airport was shut down until later in Friday. So I was like, how are the Preds even going to get in? How are the Preds players going to even land and get into Tampa? And I'm like, all this for a preseason game, it's not worth it. And they did end up postponing the game until I believe October 7th.
I'm surprised they didn't even just cancel the game altogether.
Well, we'll save that debate for later. But they seem keen on having these preseason games, apparently.
And I was honestly surprised they even made Tampa travel to Nashville for that Saturday game. I would have thought if I were one of those players, you're making me travel from my home where my families are in the storm for a preseason game. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little surprising, but they did play at Nashville.
They did.
And they win 6-0. Jonathan Marchessault, he's the first guy I want to talk about. He makes his Preds debut. Didn't play in the first two games. Scores a goal and 2 assists. Gets power play action, which we fully expect him to be on the power play. We don't know if he's going to be on the first or second power play unit. That's a whole nother debate that we've actually touched on a little bit in previous episodes. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more actually later in our quick hitter segment. But so Max, first of all, let's talk about Jonathan Marchessault. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty right at home, right?
Yeah, not too bad. And of course, you can't judge anything too much because it's preseason. But he was on a line yesterday with Tommy Novak, who he'll probably be his line mate in the regular season, and Luke Evangelista was on that line, and the three of them had some really good moments together. They were all involved on the at least maybe even more. I kind of lost track of who scored what because there was a lot of stuff going on, but I know for a fact the three of them had some really nice puck movement on the fourth and fifth goals of the game. So yeah, I mean, you would expect those guys to look good because last night the Lightning had a bunch of non-really NHL players, and the Preds of course had Marchessault, Novak, Evangelista. You'd expect them to look good and kind of take with a grain of salt, but they did. So you can never get mad at guys for meeting expectations. They looked the part.
And that happens a lot in the preseason. Is you get these lopsided matchups, like where one team decides to throw out a vast majority of their prospects, maybe a sprinkle in a veteran here or there, and then the other team throws out a lot of their guys. They're going to be their main guys in the regular season. So it happens a lot that way. It happened in the doubleheader against the Panthers, where the Preds I would have to go back and look at the exact rosters for there was definitely one of the two games. Might have been the opener. I believe it was the opener where the Preds lost 3-2, where I felt like the Preds threw out a lot of their younger prospects, and the Panthers threw out a lot of their guys. Even Matthew Tkachuk was in there. I'm pretty sure Spencer Knight was in net. So this is what happens in the preseason. That's why I say you cannot get fixated on the final score. You want to see his chemistry being built. You want to get a window into what the coach is thinking in terms of lines. And so you see Tommy Novak match with Marchessault. So that gives you a clear indication of what we've already been thinking all offseason, which is that Novak is going to be that second line center.
Yeah, no, it definitely seems like it. And they've been doing that the whole, and I kind of maybe getting a little ahead of myself. They've had the second line of Stamkos, Novak, Marchessault the whole training camp. So it very much looks like it's going to happen, which is what we expected.
Let's say hi to our friend Lindsay. She jumps in on YouTube. She says, hello, friends. How are we doing? We are doing awesome, and it's really great to see you, Lindsay. We love you so much, and you've been sticking with the podcast for a long time, and we love having you. And she also jumps in and says that 6-0 win looked like a heck of a game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't care if it's preseason or not. When you win 6-0, that's at least you got to keep the coach happy. At least the coach has to be happy because every now and then, here's the thing, the preseason might not matter, but if you put up a stink fest and you put up a really, really bad performance, that can still send alarm bells to the head coach. So at least we see that the Predators are taking care of business when they have their big time guys out there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, and I think you'd agree on kind of being on the pessimistic side of things. It definitely says a lot more if there's bad happening in the preseason than if there's good. But when you have good, you expect it. That's a good thing still. So
for sure. Let's go down the list. So you saw Parsons. I think he's played in 2 of the 3 preseason games.
Last night.
He needs all the preseason reps he can get because, he has a lot to prove this year. He really does. He got the 1-year deal after his ELC expired. He's on a prove-it year for sure. He's got to have a strong year. Otherwise, there's a very realistic chance that the Preds could move on from him at some point going into next offseason. So he's got to have a strong year. And he's very much a fringe NHL tweener at this point. If the Preds were to decide to move on from him in the future, he would probably have a hard time finding a landing spot somewhere else. He's got to really work his way up into that echelon of play. He's got to work his way out of prospect status, which even though we think of him as not being a prospect anymore, by NHL standards, he's still a prospect. Status,
yeah.
He's a tweener for sure.
Yeah.
So he's got a lot to prove. I like to see what he's doing in the preseason. He gets an assist in over 16 minutes of action in this preseason win against the Lightning. So it's good to see him getting the reps. And, of course, Max, you brought this up before we went live, and I want you to get into it a little bit more. And we can, as we get into the training camp part of it, these segments are going to kind of blend together, so it's okay. it's not a foregone conclusion that Parsonen, of course, is going to be in the starting lineup on opening night of the regular season against the Dallas Stars. So expand on that a little bit. What's going on?
Yeah, there's been and I'll kind of talk about the lines and everything that's going on here, but as far as what's going on here, of course, I talk about Stamkos, Novak, Evangelista. It's kind of news, kind of isn't. People kind of expected that. Top line of Forsberg, Riley, Nyquist looks they've been together. That's not really news. Other than that, though, one of the guys who's been turning heads, and some guy I personally was doubting, and I don't think I'm alone on this. Philip Tomasino is supposed to look much improved since last year. He's been on a line with Colton Sissons and Luke Evangelista. Evangelista's also apparently looked much improved, and I actually really love that combination. You got your two young guys on the wings, and then Sissons, your veteran, do everything kind of guy defensively, all that kind of stuff. I think that's going to be good. You can have the two young guys kind of do their thing, kind of develop, and then Sissons is kind of the glue, dirty work kind of guy. I think that's a really good combination. The other guy I want to talk, the fourth line, though, of course, you have Michael McCarron down there. Cole Smith is going to be down there. That's your McCarron is your winger, and then McCarron's your center. Smith's going to be another winger. Another guy who looks like he might make the opening night roster. Apparently, Zachary Leroux's been making a good impression too. It seems like it's between him and Mark Jankowski for that final spot in the fourth line. But man, I really hope that Leroux can, find his way there, because of course we know his play style. He's a big physical battling guy, and that kind of fourth line, you talk about a fourth line being your identity, like forechecking line, your big physical guys. If Leroux can make this roster onto that line, I would feel, as the saying goes, feed families in terms of what they're meant to do. I mean, that would be a menacing fourth line right there. I hope that Leroux makes it.
So I always thought there was a really strong chance that at some point in 2024-25, Zachary Leroux makes his NHL debut. I feel like that's a really, really strong probability. But I've always been a little bit skeptical about him starting the regular season in Nashville, because he's only had one season in the AHL. One. And he had he was spectacular. Couldn't have done anything more to further his case of being a future NHL player. But I get worried about rushing guys in too quick when you don't necessarily have to. And I look at the Predators in that mold of not having to rush prospects, even if you think they're deserving and they can handle it. They're not that type of team right now. I feel like they've got, for the most part, their starting lineup that you need to roll with. And Mark Jankowski in his own right had a really strong year as a depth player last year. So I don't know what you're going to learn in training camp that justifies having Zachary Leroux take Jankowski's spot. I really don't see the need for that right now. If the Predators were a middle-of-the-road or non-playoff team that was much more into their youth movement like we thought they were heading down for a few years, then I would say let's ride. Let's ride with Zachary Leroux right now. Let's put him in there. What do we have to lose? Let's get him in there. But I think riding with heavier with the veterans, the trusted guys for now to at least open the season, for me, is the safer route. And then we see how the regular season goes. We see how the first 10 or 20 games goes. We let Leroux and some other guys start in Milwaukee, let them cook some more, let them simmer a little bit more, marinate a little bit more, whatever you want to call it. And then if you feel like you need a jolt of young energy into the lineup after the first 10 or 20 games, if Andrew Burnett feels like it's a little stale, then you make that call up, because most of these guys are waivers exempt. So you can make call ups when you need to. And I look at Leroux in that light.
I mean, a few things I would say to that. Number one, as far as the straight up play style, I think Leroux is a better natural fit for that kind of line, because again, if you want that line to be kind of your identity physical line, he's way more physical than Jankowski is. And I definitely get what you're saying as far as this team kind of is better fit for veterans more than younger guys. But you're not. It's not like you're giving Zachary Leroux a top 6 spot or anything. It's the fourth line. He's probably not going to get a lot of ice time, and if he earns it, I'm all for it. If it doesn't work out, of course, you can send him back to Milwaukee. It's not like, he's down there permanently. So I don't have a huge problem with it at all. Now, in fact, and I think if he makes it, I would honestly think that Barry Trotz and Andrew Bennett are kind of thinking along the same lines as you, as far as, they're definitely going to give more preference to the veteran guys with more experience. So that, in my mind, I would spin it as saying that if LaRue is in the lineup, it means he's really earned it.
Oh, for sure. If he earns it, then give it to him. I'm not saying don't give it to guys that have earned it. All I'm saying is he needs to really, really prove it and earn it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
There's got to be some reason that Jankowski, who is the trusted veteran, and I get what you're saying about identity lines and stuff like that. My point is it's an 82-game regular season. You know what you have in Jankowski, and he did nothing last season to say otherwise. I mean, they brought the guy back for a reason. So I don't know what you're going to learn overwhelmingly in training camp and preseason that says, oh, Jankowski, you're out, dude. Sorry, we cannot roll with you to open the season. We're going with this guy or LaRue. I don't see how that happens on game one of an 82-game regular season. I certainly see how it could happen as the season progresses. And I think it's inevitable that Zachary LaRue is going to make his NHL debut. Do I think it's smart to do it in the first game of the season, especially against the Dallas Stars? I don't. And that's just me. I'm not saying I'm right and everyone else is wrong. That's just my personal preference. I don't think it's needed. I don't think you have to push it right now. I think you can afford to be smart about it. Now, I definitely don't want to see Zachary LaRue just be a healthy scratch sitting on the bench. Now, there's definitely a plus side to guys getting that NHL experience, even if they're not playing. Getting those NHL reps, getting those practices are definitely valuable for guys like LaRue. But again, he's only played 1 year in the AHL. I mean, he's still very new to the professional hockey scene. So I don't think it's going to stunt his growth at all if he starts the season in Milwaukee again as one of the main leaders of that team, and then he works his way into the lineup eventually. That's just me, but we'll see how it goes. If he earns it and he just gives the coaches no choice, the coaches are like, this guy is just balling out. We got to start this guy. I'm not saying I'm against it, but he's got to really, really prove it. And maybe he is.
That's what I would assume, that he's probably really, really proving it.
All right. Well, let's see. I mean, I'll definitely be the first person to grab my popcorn and be ready if he gets a start game one. I'll be of the regular season. I'll be all for it. I want to see the guy. He's going to be perfect for this organization the way he plays. And, after going through some question marks with his on-ice disciplinary issues, he's really reined that in. He still had a ton of penalty minutes last year, but he's always going to have a lot of penalty minutes because that's how he plays.
Yeah, I mean,
but he cut out a lot of the really bad game misconduct stuff last year. A lot of his penalty minutes come through just fights, the 5-minute majors. But the misconducts, he's definitely got to rein that in.
Yeah,
and it looks like he is as he gets older.
It seems like it. It seems like he's starting to calm down a little bit there.
Let's go through some other preseason guys that are really sticking out. Luke Evangelista gets some power play time and assist. Max already brought him up. We got Tomasino, who scored a goal, I believe, in the Panthers series doubleheader.
He scored last night too.
He did. All right, maybe it was last night that he scored.
So it was a really good. Let me talk about that play for a second. That was honestly, and I don't want to say this has such trash Tomasino, but the play that he made yesterday was honestly a play that I hadn't really seen from before. I know it's preseason, but that play he made, it was a really good effort play to he stripped the guy from behind. It helped draw a penalty, and then afterwards he eventually finished the goal in the delayed penalty. I mean, that was a really, really great sequence for Tomasino, one that he really, I don't think, has had very often since he's been on the Preds.
And these are the guys that I really want to see get the most out of the preseason, even though I think the preseason's too long and sometimes it's hard to really get a lot out of it. But when I see guys like Tomasino scoring a goal and making things happen, when I see Parsonen out there getting the game reps, when I see the younger prospects out there doing good things, That is what you really want to see out of the preseason.
Yeah.
And then going back to the Florida Panthers doubleheader, Joakim Kimmel got a goal in the preseason opener. And then even though it was a blowout, the Panthers were just cooking the Predators. Stamkos did score on one of those patented one-timers against the Panthers on the power play. It was a setup from, I believe, who was it? Was that Evangelista that gave him that feed, or was it
I have
Novak?
no idea, honestly.
Let me pull it up because we want to make sure we're accurate here. It was, Luke Evangelista was the primary assist. It was the Preds were down 6-1 at this point, but still, you want to see the power play reps. You want to see what was going on. Ryan O'Reilly was down there in his office, his power play office, if you will, down there to the side of the net, to the side of the goalie. It was good-looking passing, and then a really, really accurate pass across the slot from Evangelista to set up Steven Stamkos. So that was, even though it was a blowout, you love to see that.
Yep.
You might see Stamkos, one more time this preseason. I really don't want to see him out there too much. I'd be okay if we don't see him at all the rest of the preseason.
Honestly, they may not at all. Honestly, they may not at all. At least
I'd be okay with that. I mean, I know we want to see as much Stamkos as possible, but we got 82 regular season games and hopefully a lot of playoff games to see Stamkos in a Preds uniform. I would be okay. We'll probably see him one more time. We got 3 more preseason games.
I guess so. Now they have that other game against it's still that game against Tampa.
Look, if he appears in one of the final 3 preseason games, God, keep his ice time down to a minimum. I've already seen Patrick Laine get crushed. I don't need to see. I'm just so spooked by it that I just make the preseason for the prospects. Let them go out there and do their thing. I really don't want to see Stamkos and some other guys out there. I really don't.
I get you. Absolutely.
But well, still good stuff there. So let's get into the training camp aspect of it a little bit more. Been seeing some good stuff, some good clips. Going to share on the screen real quick the latest roster cuts from the Preds here. And this is from today, September 29th. And the roster has been trimmed a little bit more. We got some guys going to Milwaukee Admirals training camp. So a lot of times hockey's so much different than a lot of other sports. A lot of times it's not roster cuts. It sounds like such a harsh term when you say roster cuts. Really what they're doing is they're sending all these prospects back to the teams that they're already supposed to play with this year is really what's happening.
Yeah.
So, they're not really cutting them from the team. They're just
no one's getting waived or anything here. Let's make that clear.
And the only reason I'm saying that, I know there's people out there that are like, thanks, Captain Obvious, but there are a lot of new hockey fans out there, and there's new fans of this fan base that join every year, and so we like to make sure that it makes sense for everybody. So I know it's a little obvious, but for some people, they're new to the sport. And so they want to make sense of it. So that's what we're doing. So, there it is on the screen from the Nashville Predators website. Some of the guys that are getting sent back to Milwaukee, your forwards, Anthony Angelo, Easton Armstrong looked really good, by the way, in the rookie showcase. He scored 2 goals in the third period of a game against, I think it was the Hurricanes prospects. And he was on a professional tryout in Preds training camp, so it's really cool to see him go to Milwaukee. That's awesome. That's a win right there for someone like Easton Armstrong, an undrafted prospect. To see him get his chance for the Milwaukee Admirals, that's really cool. So that's one guy I'm really going to be following closely in Milwaukee because I love underdog stories. I love stuff like that. Alexander Campbell, Jordan Frasca. Remember, he was the God, there's been so many roster. Who was he? He was acquired in the was he acquired in
I honestly don't remember.
He was the forward. Oh my gosh. Here we go. All right. Well, I'm gonna look it up because this is what the Preds do. They just they've done so much that you get lost in all this. You just forget how many guys But Jordan Frasca was definitely acquired in one of the trades that the Preds have been a part of. I'm pulling it up on Puckpedia right now because it's going to drive me crazy. But he's going to Milwaukee. Got some other guys there. Joakim Kimmel, his preseason action is done, which he got some action. He scored a goal. So he's going to be a massive part of the Milwaukee Admirals this year, of course. And then let's see. That's going to drive me crazy. Oh, the Cody Glass trade.
Gosh. Yeah, that's it. Yep, that's right.
He was acquired in the Cody Glass trade, and he's kind of a embattled prospect. Like it seems like people have given up on this guy, but he's going to Milwaukee. Let's see, Cal O'Reilly. That was really cool to see Cal O'Reilly and Ryan O'Reilly do the photo op and get to play together in the preseason. Reed Schaefer is another big time prospect.
Yeah, that was one that stood out to me. Joakim Kimmel also.
Yes. And then your defenseman, Kevin Gravel, Jeremy Hansel, Jake Livingstone is still hanging around, Jack Mateer, Luke Prokop, Ryan Ufko.
Yeah, that was a big one for me.
And he looked really good. I think he got an assist against the Lightning this past weekend. And then, of course, your goalies, Magnus Krona, who was acquired in the Yaroslav Askarov trade. We're going to have to see whether he's going to be the main goalie or how the starts are divvied out in Milwaukee, because you got Matthew Murray, who's a little bit more of a veteran, who was also acquired this offseason by the Predators as a free agent. So Magnus Krona, but we figure he's going to definitely get a lot of starts, his fair share of starts with the Milwaukee Admirals this year. So and then down there at the bottom, you're seeing there Fedor Shvechkov has been designated non-roster due to injury.
Yeah, he was week to week as of last week with an injury he suffered.
Yeah, so we won't see him in the preseason anymore.
Yeah, that's a shame. That's one way you want to see for sure.
But he got really good reps in the rookie showcase and looked really good. So it'll be okay. Again, he's another prospect where I'm like, there's no reason to rush this guy along. He's going to be fine. He just like Zachary Leroux. I know he's not as close to being NHL ready as Zachary Leroux is, but he's another prospect that just completed his first full-time rookie season in the AHL. So we can be patient with some of these guys. Even though we're excited about them, we can be patient about them as well. So there's that. But let's talk about Ozzy Weisblatt. He was acquired in the trade for Igor Afanasyev this past summer. Yep. And right now, at least, based on what we're seeing from this guy, we can be pretty happy about it, because I know there were a lot of diehard fans of Igor Afanasyev, myself included. For the past couple of years, I kept saying, Igor Afanasyev, it's a matter of when, not if, that he becomes a regular on the Nashville Predators lineup, and it just never happened. And he ends up getting traded. But this Ozzy Weisblatt guy, I've been looking up his history. He's got a really interesting history. I love he's a high motor player. He's going to, much like Zachary Leroux, Weisblatt plays like his hair is on fire 24/7. So let's talk about Weisblatt a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's a former first-round pick, and, he's one of those guys who has a lot of he's like a speed skill guy, very much kind of guy who plays into Andrew Burnett's style. Of course, we know the Preds, they still handle a lot of that physicality from last year, but of course Andrew Burnett's thing is he loves guys who have that speed up tempo kind of nature about them. And he played last night. He actually did score a goal on a tip in from Parsonen, and overall it's been hard to really conclude too much, but from everything I've heard, the Preds seem to really like him, and he's going to be a guy, assuming he's going to be in Milwaukee this year, he's going to be a guy to watch to see if he can somehow crack this roster. And it's going to probably be hard for him to crack the NHL roster, but the team seems to like him, so we're going to be interesting to see where he goes.
He's a hard hitter. He is plays with a high motor. He plays with high energy. Everything that you want to see from an Andrew Burnett system is basically how he plays. And so he's got a long path forward, but he was a first-round pick, 31st overall by the San Jose Sharks. So let's see. Let's see what he does in Milwaukee. He's a fun player to watch. Everyone loves watching guys like that. So something to keep an eye on for sure. The rest of training camp right now, I mean, I don't think there's a ton of position battles going on right now. What do you see, Max? Do you think really right now it's just basically more about the core of the lineup and working on that, building that chemistry on the power play?
Yeah,
and
I would
like
say
that?
so. I would say the thing to watch, honestly, if there's anything to watch as far as, a roster spot on the lineup, it's probably that last spot in the fourth line as we talk about between LaRue and Mark Jankowski. Another guy we haven't really talked about who's been looking really nice, apparently, Tanner Molendyk, apparently has been turning heads. Barry Trotz offered some huge praise for him, saying he's been near perfect, and even said that we're going to see if he beats out some other guys on the veterans on the roster to make a spot. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm very sure he's going to be in Milwaukee.
No.
But just the fact that Trotz even said that makes you think, wow, okay, there's something here for real.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
And we kind of need it.
There's definitely something there, though. I mean, for sure. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Not to bring up sore subjects, but if we want to have gotten, something good out of that Matthias Ekholm trade, Tanner Molendyk needs to pan out for real.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's something we're not going to know for years to come, for sure. We're not going to know that for a while. But, yeah, so we got to roll through this, the rest of this training camp. The season debut or the regular season opener is less than 2 weeks away, I believe.
10 days from tomorrow.
10 days from tomorrow. There you go. I'm super stoked, by the way, and it pays to have good friends. Let's just tell you that. So, I've made my connections down here in the Tampa Bay, St. Pete area. Got some good friends. They watch the podcast, actually. I'm bringing them aboard as far as being Preds fans when they're not playing the Lightning, which is kind of how I am. Just because I live down here, I always like to support the teams where I live. But always, of course, number one, it's always going to be the Preds. No matter where I live, that's non-negotiable. But I think it's fair when it's an Eastern Conference team, opposite conference, that you can have a team that you still root for. Very easy to do. And of course, if the Preds and the Lightning ever meet in the Stanley Cup final, well, then it's going to be not even like close. It'll just be Preds, and I'm going to ask for a sweep. But in all seriousness, I'm trying to push them forward to kind of like the Preds, and they're coming along because they love Stamkos so much that they're like, well, we got to start rooting for the Preds now because we love Stamkos so much. So I'm like, that's cool. But anyway, they had a 10-game pack. Home game pack, ticket package, and they cannot go to the Stamkos return game to Tampa on October 28th. So I will be there. Those tickets are going for like $250 to $300 in the upper deck the last time I looked.
For the Stamkos return game?
Yes, in Tampa.
Wow, that's crazy.
Now, I haven't looked in a couple weeks, but the cheapest tickets were like $250.
Yeah, that's insane.
Like that. Yeah, it's going to be a crazy game just because there's probably going to be a lot of people crying in Tampa Bay Lightning jerseys. I'm not trying to make fun of that. I'm just saying it's true. These people look at Stamkos like he's a god down here. So can't wait to be at that game. But anyway, the Preds are getting ready for their season opener. And so that's where we're at with it. The season's coming up quick. We're about to get into our battle for the Central Power Rankings. But before we do that, I want to tell you about our first sponsor of the night, and that is BetterHelp. And of course, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp, which is just, give online therapy a try. Now more than ever, everything going on in this world, it's easy to lose track of your personal priorities and what's going on. You get lost in the everyday life of running around and getting everything done, and you forget about your own self and your own priorities. And it doesn't take a personal traumatic event to get the benefits of online therapy. And the great thing about BetterHelp is It's completely online. You do an online questionnaire. You get matched with an online therapist. And if it doesn't work out, if you don't like that online therapist, or if it's just not really like matching, they'll match you with another one free of charge. It's a really awesome thing. As you become an adult, when you're kids, you want to learn all of these things. You're like a sponge. Kids are always learning and growing. But as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity. What's something you like to learn? It's all about keeping that brain function going. Gardening, a new language, or maybe how to finally beat your best friend in bowling. Therapy can definitely help you reconnect with your sense of wonder, because your back-to-school era can come at any age. If you've ever benefited from therapy, then this is for you. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. All right, let's get into it, Max, with our battle for the Central preseason power rankings. And I'm going to get it on the screen here so everyone can see my rankings going into the preseason. And if anyone, for the people who have been listening to this podcast for a long time and they remember listening to last year's power rankings, and even the season before that, we were doing this. I've always been pretty unfair to the Predators. I've always been like, I don't trust it. They can go on a 5-game winning streak. I'm not bumping them up. But this offseason has such a different feel, as you would expect when you sign a guy like Steven Stamkos and the other players they've signed. I've had to really rethink how I feel about this team. And it makes me really nervous to jump on this ledge and feel the way I feel about this team. But I've got the Predators, Max, at number 2 on my power ranking.
That's exactly where I have mine on mine.
Number 2.
Yep, I agree with it.
Let's see if we agree on our number 1 teams.
Okay.
I think it's got to be the Dallas Stars, right?
Yes, I have that too.
All right. So we both agree on the Dallas Stars. I'm trying to get this to pull up here. It's not agreeing with me. But, okay. So I've got the Dallas Stars at number 1.
Yep.
I've got the Predators at number 2. And I had a really hard time doing that, to put them ahead of the Avalanche. But look, I think the Avalanche,
they didn't get better at all.
That's what I was about to say. They didn't get better. I'm not saying they're a bad team. Not in any way am I saying they're a bad team. But did they get better?
No.
You can't really say they got better.
I'm not. I say it as if to say that they're not good, but no. They are asking if they got better. No way.
No way. So let's talk about our number 1 team that me and Max agree on, and I think 99% of people would agree on. It's the Dallas Stars. Yeah. They went 52-21-9 last season for 113 points. They won the Central Division last year. You got to unseat the king before you can take them out, and they're just built. Their Stanley Cup window is wide open. They're built perfectly. They've got the goaltending. They've got the top-end talent. They've got the depth. They've got the head coach. They've got everything going for them. I mean, but even when you have everything going for you, it still doesn't mean you're going to win a Stanley Cup. But as far as the preseason is concerned, preseason expectations, preseason power rankings, unless you're just a Dallas Stars hater, they got to be number 1 on your list in the Central Division.
I mean, I'm a Dallas Stars hater, but I can tell you they should be number 1. So,
I mean, there might be some Minnesota Wild fans out there, because I know that rivalry runs thick, that probably like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not putting the Stars at number 1. That's fair, but at the same time, I gotta do it. They're number 1 until
they're probably but they're again. I think they're the best team in the Central.
If the Preds this offseason just stuck with the status quo, or maybe they made a couple mid-tier signings, but they didn't add Stamkos or Marchessault. Let's say they added Brady Shea, but they didn't add Stamkos or Marchessault. I definitely wouldn't put them ahead of the Avalanche.
No.
I'm putting them at number 2 because on paper they are better than that. They are at least a toss-up with the Avalanche on paper.
I assume, but I can only assume by that logic you have Colorado at number 3.
I do.
Yep, same
Let's
with
save
me.
you the suspense. I didn't just like tank them or anything like that. No, I haven't.
No.
It's not loading on my screen right now, so I'm having technical difficulties. But I'm going to work on that so that everyone can. There it is. All right. Finally, but I'm about to have it on the screen now. There it is.
Let's see.
So I got the Avalanche at number 3. 50, 25, and 7 last year for 107 points. Of course, they still have one of the world's best players, Nathan MacKinnon. They still have they're very top end, Max. I think they're very top heavy.
We agreed on every one of those rankings except for number 4 through 6.
Well, that's where it gets a little, murky.
Yeah, I think the middle of the pack was definitely.
So getting out of the top 3, my number 4 team, I got the Winnipeg Jets. Who that I can't push them completely out. I don't really trust them, but they still got Connor Hellebuck, even though he had an atrocious playoff performance. He's still regarded
apparently
as a top
has not been great in preseason games. Has not been great.
Okay,
that's what I've heard.
Well,
but it's preseason, but still.
Yeah, but I've got them at number 3. Or number 4, Winnipeg Jets. So let me recap. Dallas Stars, number 1. Nashville Predators, number 2. Colorado Avalanche, number 3. Winnipeg Jets, number 4. Number 5, I got the St. Louis Blues. I really thought about putting the Blues at number 4. I think they're going to be a much improved team this year. They're going to be young, they're going to be mixed with young and old. They got some aging veterans like Braden Shen. But I think they're going to be slightly improved. I think they could definitely rally to be a wild card team this year. So I got them at number 5. Where did you jump off board with me? Who's your number 5?
So I'll go 4 through 6. I actually put Utah at number 4.
Okay.
I think this summer it's kind of a interesting thing for them. I think the whole relocation kind of puts that affects it a little bit. I think it's kind of like a fresh start for them to kind of play free and stuff like that. And also, their defense got a lot better this year. They made some serious additions. John Marino. I forgot who else they added, but they added Mikhail Sergachev from Tampa Bay. So they made some additions there. I mean, their forward lines could still see some improvement, but their defense now is honestly pretty legit. I gotta say.
And we're talking about basically the former Arizona Coyotes. They're not an expansion team, of course. And they did make some upgrades, as Max is saying. I think that 4 through 6 there is very murky. I mean, very interchangeable. But I did put Utah Hockey Club at number 6. Blues at number 5.
I had Winnipeg at number 5. I couldn't put them lower than that, even though I don't think they're going to be better than they were last year and things like that. I still put them number 5. You have to respect that. I put St. Louis in number 6. I kind of think it's going to be more of the same for them. Who did they add this? I honestly may not remember. Did they add anybody this offseason who was really eye-opening?
Nothing to really write home about.
Yeah, and I think they're kind of a middling team right now.
They kind of kept the status quo. I mean, I really am a firm believer in Robert Thomas. I think he's very underrated.
He's good. That's true.
Jordan Bennington is a very streaky goalie. Let's take away all the extra shenanigans that he does that people don't like him for. I'm just talking about him purely as a goalie. He is so streaky. There's nights where he looks unbreakable, and there's nights where he just looks awful and he lets his emotions get the best of him. But I'm a big fan of Robert Thomas. I'm a big fan of Jordan Kyrou. They got some guys.
Yep.
They got some guys. I think they can scrap their way to a wild card this year. But again, that 4 through 6 is very murky. But I am actually a little surprised that you agreed with me on Minnesota Wild being number 7. I feel like that's a little bit of a hot take. I mean, they had 87 points last year. It's not like they were completely a dumpster fire. But you want to talk about not doing anything to impress me in the offseason? It's the Minnesota Wild.
And not only that, and maybe I'm overreacting for making this part of my analysis, and this is just a rumor, and obviously it's 2 years out, so you can't really say anything at this point. But I heard a rumor that apparently the Blackhawks in a few years might want to go after Kirill Kaprizov in free agency, and apparently he's thinking about it. But just the thought that Kaprizov's already maybe thinking of where his future is outside of Minnesota. If you're a Minnesota Wild fan right now, you're probably like, not good.
I mean, I think they're getting ready to go through some rough times for the Minnesota Wild.
Could be.
They just don't have any depth that impresses me at all. They're kind of aging. I don't know a lot about their prospect pool, but it's not something I hear about very often. I do know they have some young talent. I'm not saying they're just completely talentless when it comes to their younger core of their team. But, when you talk about the Central Division, I don't know. I don't know that I can put them ahead of 4 through 6, so I'm putting them at number 7. The Blackhawks, I felt kind of bad about putting them at number 8, but I knew I couldn't put the Wild at number 8. I just couldn't do that.
No, the Blackhawks
I couldn't take that big of a leap. I just couldn't do it. But I do think the Blackhawks are going to be significantly improved. I think they're going to be significantly improved. So, which you only got anywhere to go but up when you have 52 points in the standings. So they're going to be much better. I don't think they're going to be a doormat necessarily. But of course, I'm going to put them at number 8 to go into the season.
No, they still, again, I actually was a big fan of what they did in the offseason, especially I like them getting Tyler Bertuzzi. I think it's a really good fit for their team right now. But again, they got to prove more before they can get out of that number 8. They're still not a playoff team yet. They got a lot more work to do. But again, they're going up. But again, there's only up. You can only go up from here. If you're the Blackhawks.
Exactly. But they're not going to be an easy out like they were last season. I think they're going to be a little bit better.
Not be quite the same pushover.
Yeah. All right. So there's that. So there's our preseason edition. Every week during the regular season, we will update those rankings, and we'll literally just like power rankings work. We will go off of how is it going, like what are these teams doing, and we'll move teams up and down. Like that's how we do it. We'll have fun with it, and all that good stuff. All right, we're gonna move along here in the episode. We need to get to our quick hitters segment as the dog is coming after me. All right, you're gonna have to get down, girl. Let's get down.
How's Sophia doing?
She's doing awesome. So yeah, she did not like the storm. By the way, she was.
I imagine she did not.
She was not crazy about her first experience in a hotel room, but she got to meet a lot of new people and make friends, and so she'll be okay. Nice. But they say that dogs can sense when their owner is having anxiety and having stress, and she definitely showed that for sure.
Yeah. Dogs are smarter than we think they are.
Oh, they're so incredibly smart. But we need to tell you about our next sponsor real quick, and that is, of course, DraftKings. It's episode 247 of Catfish on Ice, presented by DraftKings and also presented by BetterHelp. We've got a new DraftKings offer that I am going to pull up right now to tell you about. Of course, we are right in the middle of the NFL season, of course, and we've got a really good offer for you. So let's tell you about it. With DraftKings, promo code THPN. TD, Tutty, in for 6. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. We don't care how they score them. We want to bet on touchdowns, and DraftKings Sportsbook is delivering. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on a player to score a touchdown. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. I actually love doing the whole touchdown thing more than betting on who's going to win, because you can just pick like a player that you really like and be like, yeah, I think that's going to score a touchdown. So that's what you can do now with our current DraftKings offer. Pretty cool stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's get into our quick hitters segment, Max. And that is, of course, first up, let's talk about Let's talk about Luke Evangelista. I am a big, big believer in putting Luke Evangelista on the top power play unit.
So am I. Now, I don't think it's going to happen, especially because we've seen in training camp they've loaded up the power plays. Power play unit to be the first one to be top heavy. Of course, you got Forsberg, O'Reilly, Stamkos, Marshall, Yossi on that first power play unit. But I really am a believer, like you said, in kind of spreading the wealth. And I think Evangelista, of course, we know his talent. He's a really good puck distributor, his vision, and obviously all that skill. He's not half bad at shooting either. And I really think a guy like him, when you account for a guy like Stamkos being on his other side, I can just imagine Luke Evangelista's assists to Steven Stamkos being things of beauty. And I'm with you. Do I think, again, I don't think it's going to happen that way, but I really like it. And also, I think I've mentioned this, and I've actually referenced this video in my in a few Predlines articles, one I actually just wrote about Steven Stamkos. And if you look at a lot of the Preds power plays last year, and you saw sometimes when Evangelista had the puck, he could have easily had Stamkos on the side, and they could have had some really pretty exchanges. But no, I think I think that's absolutely something the Preds should consider, even though I don't think they're going to do it. And it's hard to complain about having the unit as the way it is with the best guys on it. I think that makes for probably the best top unit. But I think in terms of getting two consistent, really good units that they still can have. But I definitely agree with you. I think I like the idea of Evangelista being on that first unit.
Yeah, so here's my thing about it, and I agree with all that stuff. Look, Evangelista is, you hope, is in the future going to be one of your main offensive weapons way past when Steven Stamkos is no longer here. And getting into the elder years of Philip Forsberg and stuff like that, Evangelista, you hope, is going to be one of your main offensive guys. And even though when you look at the starting lineup this year, you don't see a way to put Evangelista in the top 6, I think you got to figure out a way to feature him. I think you got to figure out ways to get him up there, especially if he deserves it. So I think on special teams and on the power play unit, it's a great opportunity to test him out and see what he can do playing with, here's my other 4 guys: Roman Yossi, Philip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, and
Stamkos.
And Stamkos, of course.
Yeah.
And Evangelista. That means Marchessault comes out and goes on the second unit. I like a 2-headed monster on the power play.
I do too. Yeah. Yeah. I think we're in complete agreement here. I mean, like I said, spread the wealth. And again, it's not like Evangelista, some scrub or anything. He's still an extremely talented guy. What does he lack? That's experience. And he hasn't really proven himself totally yet. But I mean, we've seen him on the power play before, and he can still do some good things. And again, I think schematically speaking, I think he's a really good fit on that top unit.
Yes, for sure. And of course, the beauty of it is the power play unit can, of course, be a fluid situation throughout the season. But I would be all for opening up with that and see. And that's really the amazing thing about it is the Predators have so many strong options for their 2 power play units. And so that's going to be fascinating to see in game 1 of the regular season, assuming they get a power play opportunity, is what are those first power play units really look like? It's going to be fun, and it's going to be a big thing to talk about. So yeah, good stuff there. Let's move along. Let's talk about it finally. Let's talk about, Max, how much needed is this preseason stuff? You see Laine, you see these guys going down 6 preseason games when you're talking about such a brutal sport. How much do you really learn in these preseason games in terms of guys getting a start? I know there's definitely lineup position battles for some teams more than others, and you can definitely find like your line combinations through preseason games. You can test some stuff out. But my whole thing is, if you want to still keep preseason games against other teams so you can really get a measuring stick, why don't you just have a double header? Each team has a double header every year against a team, and you knock it out in one day. You knock it out in one day. You have a double header, throw some guys out. Maybe you have some inter-squad matchups along the way through training camp, but I don't need 6 preseason games. I just don't know what we're getting out of it.
So here's a few things I'll say about, that right there. And I think I have some kind of similar but differing opinions. So as far as, the amount of games that are played, I definitely think, 6 games that they play? I think they can afford to don't have to play all 6 games. I think that's a little much. I think you probably do 3 or 4. I don't think you need those extra 2 or 3 games to really learn anything. You're not really anyway. Again, it's preseason. It's got to be taken with a grain of salt anyway. And there's definitely some use to it. Of course, it's one of those things where there are some kind of battles, as we talked about with, the fourth line battle with Zachary Leroux and Mark Jankowski. At least that's what we believe it's going to be. And one thing Chad and I talked about, like right before we got on, and also mentioned, it's not exactly like football, for example, in terms of the position battles. Like football's way more, niche in terms of, for example,
and a much larger roster, obviously.
Yeah, like Titans this year, and again, the Titans probably maybe not the best example because the Titans have several more holes than a lot of teams do. But there's like your right tackle position, maybe your second linebacker, maybe your second safety. There's 11 positions on the football field, different positions on each side of the ball. So that's a little different. But in hockey, by and large, your top 6 really is not much of a question. If you are, you're probably in trouble. Same with like your top 4 on defense. Your goaltenders usually figure out, again, if you don't know what your goaltender is going to be like, you're probably in trouble. But there are some legit reasons why preseason's a thing. Number one, you don't want to just go into playing regular season games cold off the couch. You're going to look terrible if you do. That's the thing. You can't, that's why preseason training camp exists. One thing I'll say, and I don't think I'm going to get much of an argument from you on this, Chad, but one thing I will also say that, and I'm not saying you say this, but a lot of people will say this, whenever you see a guy get hurt, whether that be in a preseason game or training camp, you'll wonder, why were they even practicing in the first place? I can't stand that, okay? Anyone who's ever played sports at the most basic level, even myself, like I played.
They gotta practice, yeah.
Yeah, you have to practice.
Do we have to bring up the Allen Iverson soundbite? Practice?
Again, you have to practice. Everyone knows, anyone who's been an athlete knows you have to practice. But I do agree, you definitely can afford to. Again, you don't need 6 games, that's for sure. And again, I agree with you as far as saying the battles are not nearly as intense as the ones, like, for example,
I would argue, and I would love to really ask like a poll of head coaches and even players. I'd like to get the different answers from coaches and players on what do you get more value from, the training camp practices or these preseason games. And I mean, I threw it out on I posted it on X that I think that the players who are sacrificing their bodies in this brutal sport should have a say in how many preseason games they play.
Yeah,
I really do. And I think 3 is a really fair number of games.
I agree.
I think a doubleheader would be cool. Do an annual doubleheader against a team like the Preds always do it against the Panthers. Maybe switch it up. Maybe even let the teams wear cool uniforms to get the fans excited. Like do some alternate uniforms they get to wear or something. I don't know. It was like spicing it up,
Right.
Yeah, and maybe do one solo game against another team. But again, it's so much different than other sports when it comes to true position battles and really needing those preseason games to figure out, okay, now we're talking about Zachary Leroux. He's definitely a guy who's going to benefit from his preseason action. So I'm not completely taking it away from every player, but again, is it worth the risk of losing your superstar players in preseason? And that's why you see your Philip Forsbergers and your Roman Yossi's and your Steven Stamkos is not playing a lot of preseason action as it is.
I will say, and I think we touched on this in this episode, or at least I mentioned to you personally, as far as with the Preds postpone that game against Tampa Bay getting postponed, why postpone a preseason? Just cancel it altogether.
I thought it was really strange. I thought for sure they were going to cancel it.
And it got postponed to October 7th, like 3 days before the regular season starts. Like, why? I don't get it.
I don't know if it has something to do with they have an obligation since it was Tampa Bay's home game and maybe it has something to do with selling tickets. And
maybe
I think that probably has something to do with it. You got to think those fans bought tickets, and even though it's preseason, those fans, maybe they just want to live up to that. I don't know. I don't think the game is necessarily needed on the ice, but let's move along here. Good stuff there. Let's get into the Preds stat of the week, and that is something that NHL Network shared. today as they do their player rankings, and that is none other than the captain, Roman Josi. And I didn't realize this. This is a long stretch of time here. This is a long stretch of time. Roman Josi leads the NHL among defensemen in points over the last 10 seasons. 612 points. 612 points over the last 10 seasons. The most among defensemen, and he comes in at number 18 on NHL Network's top 50 players right now. Most points among defensemen in the last 10 seasons. I didn't realize it spanned back that far, Max.
Yeah. I mean, what can you say? I mean, he's truly one of the best we've seen in a very, very long time. I mean, there's a incredibly special talent, and there's really not enough great things you can say about Roman Josi. I mean, he's the captain of this team. He's worth every last penny of his contract, does everything right. I mean, yeah, I mean, I could spend hours talking about how great Josi is, but I'm also sometimes at a loss for words how great Josi is, because he's been just doing such great things, and he's gone above and beyond for this franchise so many times.
I kind of think we take him for granted sometimes.
We might.
Not on purpose, but we just forget. We just expect him to be so good all the time that we forget that. And he's durable too. He really is a durable player. He very rarely misses action. You just always expect him to be there.
And he's gotten better. I mean, his best seasons have been in his when he was 29 and in his 30s. He's truly thrived with age.
Yeah, he really has.
Which is great. Which is crazy, because it's one of those things that, when you get into your 30s, we see all the time, the truly great players in the league find a way to keep doing their thing when they're in their
longevity.
30s.
I'm telling you, he's got a long ways to go too. I mean, maybe he's not in the prime. He's definitely not in the prime of his career, maybe, but he's got a long ways to go. I mean, he still has a really good shot to win another Norris Trophy.
Absolutely.
And I've even seen it thrown out there, is he Hall of Fame worthy yet? That's very much up for debate. I don't know. I mean,
in my biased opinion, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we're biased. I feel like if he won a Stanley Cup, there's no doubt about it. His resume speaks for itself, but I know it's all about Stanley Cup.
If he wins another Norris, it's a shoe.
If he's a two-time Norris, he's a shoe-in. Yeah. I think already now he's got a decent chance, but it's a very heated and open debate if he would get in the Hall of Fame right now with his resume. I
saw a tweet yesterday from, I believe it was Jay Fresh, his Twitter account, that said that he's a three-time first-team All-Star, and he's when's the last time a three-time first-team All-Star was left out of the Hall of Fame?
I mean, there you go.
And that's not even a Preds fan tweeting. That's a neutral fan account right there, tweeting in favor of Roman Josi right there.
Yeah. So, real quick, as we talk about this, I definitely want to pull up the active NHL point leaders among defensemen. Let's see. NHL seasons. But yeah, I mean, he's up there. I mean, he is definitely up there in terms of current active NHL defensemen. I mean, he is probably up there among, trying to find it, all-time points leaders. We got it right here. Let's see, active. Let's go to active. Let's go to defenseman. I'm a little rusty, as you can see on my looking up stats stuff. So the all-time leader in points among defensemen is Ray Bourque with 1,579. Let's go to active players. Right now, Brent Burns is the active NHL defenseman with most points, 881. Chris Letang is number 2 among active defensemen with 742. Victor Hedman is number 3 with 728. Roman Josi is number 4 among active defensemen.
Wow.
He's 31st all time among defensemen. All time. We're talking NHL history. He's got 686 points. So he's got a ways to go before he catches up to Letang, who's still active. And I'm so sorry. I think I missed one. I think let's see. He is number 1, 2, 3, 4. Roman Josi is number 5. I'm so sorry. I missed Erik Karlsson. So Roman Josi is number 5 among active defensemen in points. I missed Erik Karlsson. So look at where some of the guys he's going to pass this year. He's going to pass Chris Pronger. He's going to pass some other guys that I don't really know a lot about. But let's see. He's definitely going to have a strong chance to move close to the top 25 among defensemen all time in points this year. If he has a normal season, top 25 he can move into among defensemen. Yeah. All right, let's wrap up episode 247 with Titans time. Let's preview 0-3. How bad is it, Max?
Some parts about it. So I'm going to say, I'll get the negative stuff, at least what I hope to get the negative stuff out of the way at first. Will Levis, I got to say, starting to lose some hope that he's going to be the franchise guy. I really am at this point. He's had 3 straight games with bad turnover. The first game, we obviously know he had that horrible pick 6 against the Bears that won the game. Second game, he had maybe even a worse turnover against the Jets in the red zone, cost us 3 points that we needed. Last game, the turnover wasn't as bad, but it was a pick 6. He leads the league in turnovers right now. His EPA is really bad. And he's been overall, careless with the football. His pocket presence hasn't been good. And again, you don't want to give up hope simply because it's early and he's under a new system. But the sample size is becoming big enough to where you're like, okay, it's kind of getting to the point where the pick 6s and all that egregious stuff has to stop. It hasn't stopped. It's kind of getting out of hand. The offensive line play and the left side is okay. Now, positive, J.C. Latham, the first-round pick, dude's been a stud. He had a kind of shaky first game. Past 2 games, he has not been the problem at all. He's been rock solid. Peter Skronski's been a little up and down. I'm still not out on him yet. Especially because he had a good game his second in game 2 against the Jets. Lloyd Cushenberry, kind of the same thing, although he's a veteran, so a little different. Right side of the offensive line is looking pretty rough. Dylan Radins at right guard hasn't been terrible, but Nicolas Petit-Frere at right tackle, oh my God, dumpster fire.
So I want to really talk more about Levis. So do you think that how many more starts do you think he gets if this keeps going the way it's going? Do you think that you have to just let him play out the season and just deal with it? Or, because at this point, my thought is it's like, well, definitely if they lose on Monday to Miami, then they're 0-4.
Yeah.
Then the season just really becomes like, okay, what are we really playing for? I'm not saying they give up completely, but you look at the rest of the division and you just really think about it and you're like, first of all, what happened in that Houston-Jacksonville game? Because I saw it was close. Who ended up winning that game?
Houston won, and Jacksonville's got to be.
So Jacksonville's 0-4. That is a pretty crazy thing. But what's there really to play for in the division and in terms of, at this point, it's all about growth, right? That's what this season's about. It's just about growth.
Now, kind of answer your question about Levis, that's actually been a pretty big debate among Titans fans, whether or not if he continues to flounder out like he has, if you bench him or if you keep him in for all 17 games, no matter how bad it gets. I'm of the opinion that if it gets to a certain point, you got to bench him because again, we knew going into the year it wasn't going to be perfect for him. We knew he was going to have some down moments. We knew things were going to be shaky. We knew he had to roll with it. But again, at a certain point, you can't just be giving the other team free points. Based on Levis's mistakes, he's cost the team 17 points in the past 3 games on his own. You can't have that happening. And my thought is, if you get to October, November, and he's still doing this thing, you've already found out he's not the guy, okay? So move on. And some people are saying, well, if he's that bad, will he secure a top draft pick? Maybe I'm different. I don't really think that way, honestly, because, again, it's football. There's a certain element of pride and standard you got to have. And if he's losing you games, if he's continually costing you points, You can't let that happen. That's how you lose the locker room. That's how you lose your culture. If you're going to continually let a guy lose you games like that, and I hope Will Levis gets it together and he stops doing that. But if he keeps doing the same stuff where he's continually giving the opposition points, you can't let that happen in your lineup anymore. You got to say enough's enough.
I agree. It's weird. Monday Night Football and the Dolphins, of course, what do you think about the Dolphins now that, Tua is going through what he went through?
Yeah.
What are we seeing about this game here?
Now, first of all, about Tua, I really hope the best for him. I mean,
of course.
Things are not looking great. The Dolphins, they put him on IR. He's meeting with neurologists, and I just hope, no matter what, football or not, the guy is okay health-wise. I mean, we all know concussions are no joke, and anytime you're doing that outweighs anything and everything else as far as the game goes. But as far as the Dolphins are right now, I mean, they don't have a quarterback right now. Things are shaky for them.
Who's starting on Monday night? I guess the Titans.
Tyler Huntley, it looks like, for the Dolphins. But the Titans played against Malik Willis last week and still lost. So
and you know what? Oh, I want to get into that just quick because we got to wrap this up. But I wish he didn't have to come against the Titans, but I'm so happy for Malik Willis.
Yeah.
That guy, I follow him on X. He puts out nothing but positivity. He's such a cool underdog story. I mentioned it earlier. Who doesn't? If you're a true sports fan, then you love underdog stories. Malik Willis, I mean, again, at the expense of the Titans, so I get it, like if you're a Titans fan, but put that aside. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah.
And who knows? I mean, so the Packers got to be feeling really good about themselves right now. Yeah. They're waiting for Jordan Love to get back, but
they lost today.
Okay.
No, but the Packers in that game were down 28-0, and they came back and lost by 2. So they kind of have some momentum there. But, I mean, yeah, as far as the Titans right now, it's –
So, I mean, let's just say, and I kind of feel this coming. I could be totally wrong, but I kind of feel this coming. I think Levis is going to have a good game against the Dolphins. I really do. I think he's a competitor. He's a fiery guy.
Yep.
He knows he's played like garbage for the most part.
Yes.
The past 3 weeks. But I do love his competitiveness, and I love his fiery nature. I think he's going to throw us he's going to throw us a gem. And I'm not, it's just what I feel. I feel it in my bones. He's going to throw us a gem. Titans are going to win. They're going to beat the Dolphins. They're going to be 1-3. But what does that really mean? I mean, with the overall grand scheme of things, this team's not going anywhere this season. So I think it's all about the growth. It's all about the process. You know, let's see what happens with the process. But I don't know. I feel it in my bones. I think Levis is going to clean up some mistakes. I think he's going to make some big plays. I think the defense is going to show out. I think we could be in store for like a really low-scoring game, possibly. I don't know what you think about that, but I don't know. I'll call my shot now. I got the Titans defense having a really strong game. I got Levis scoring a couple touchdowns. He cleans it up. He doesn't have any turnovers. I'm going to say Titans win 17-14 on a field goal. Game-winning field goal. I'm going to call it.
Now, here's one thing I will say about the Titans and their offense. Some people have been talking about Brian Callahan, the play calling, and some questions about that. One stat that really shows you that Brian Callahan's play calling has not been an issue, not saying he's been perfect, but the Titans are number 12 in the NFL in terms of explosive play rate.
Okay.
That's a pretty good sign right now. And again, the skill positions we have some good moments in the skill positions. Tony Pollard has played pretty well. Calvin Ridley had a great game against the Jets. DeAndre Hopkins had a great game last week. In spite of everything against the Packers, he came back and had a really good game on a pretty limited snap count too. So you got a head coach who's had some pretty promising play calling. You had some good moments in the skill positions, but it's really in my mind, it's on Levis, and hopefully the O-line can clean up as much as they can, although I think the right side, at least right tackle, is pretty much a lost cause for the season.
Well, I mean, look, Levis has been taking it on the chin on social media. Yeah. I mean, fans have really just I don't want to say turned on him, but they're definitely just fed up with him. And I think it's kind of rough because, I mean, look, the guy is still so young, and it's not like he was drafted as the savior. I mean, yeah, he was a first-round pick, but like
he was early second.
Oh, early second proves my point even more. I mean,
Right.
I hate to say this, but sometimes Titans fans are just so unrealistic. Now,
I agree.
Now, I am totally on board with you. The guy has given away some games. Could this team? They definitely should have won against the Bears.
Yes.
So they probably should have beaten the Jets.
Yeah.
So they should be 2-1 if Will Levis cleans up his mistake. But the guy is still so young. You're acting like this guy is Ryan Tannehill out here doing this, like a veteran who's making these mistakes. Then you can turn on it. But like, guys, like, I just think it's a little out of bounds, in my opinion. You can call him out for it and be like, dude, you got to play better. But some of the stuff I've been seeing, the vile stuff I've been seeing, I know it's social media, so it's always out there. But overwhelmingly, I have seen fans just completely unrealistic about Will Levis. And I think a lot of it has to do with the preseason hype that Will Levis was getting, even from some national analysts. And so I think they got their hopes up. They're like, "Oh yeah, Will Levis, he's him, he's the guy." And it's like they've been served a hearty dose of reality that this guy is still very unpolished. And I don't know. I think they've been a little unfair to the guy a little bit. I hope he has a redemption story and he kind of makes it happen. I feel like we're living Jake Locker all over again.
And the final thing I'll say about this, and I said it again, I really want to believe in the guy. I really do. But again, the egregious bad plays, the turnover, like the giving away points, that's got to stop. I mean,
of course it does.
That's the thing right there.
It doesn't matter how young he is. That's got to stop.
Yes.
Like the one he did, was it against the Bears where he was just getting sacked and flung it up in the air like he was playing backyard football?
He did pretty much the same against Jets, going to the ground and just flings it forward. It flings backward. It's a live ball, and the Jets recover.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course. And I don't care how young he is or where he was drafted. There's no excuse for that. But, again, I mean, can we at least let the guy get through his second season in the NFL before we just again, he wasn't the first overall draft pick. He wasn't like the next. No one, when he was drafted, no analyst out there was saying, "Oh, this guy's like the next big thing." Like, in fact, the Titans he had a lot of criticism from scouts. Yeah. So, I mean, let's just put things in perspective here and take a deep breath a little bit. It's definitely frustrating to lose that way. I get it, but I don't know. I got a good feeling I could totally eat my words when I watch it. I'm excited. Monday nights are nights that I usually have free, so I'm definitely, even though this team's 0-3, I'm going to sit down. I can't wait to watch it. I hope Will Levis has a redemption game and cleans up the mistakes, does what he does. He has a strong arm. I believe in the guy. Let's see what happens. Let's get in the win column here. Let's get the good juju going. All right. It's fun time of year, Max. We got Preds already in preseason action. They're about to get their regular season going. The Titans are trying to do their thing, but it's a fun time of year. Yep. So really excited to get episode 247 out to you. Again, this is Chad Minton with Max Greenberg, presented by DraftKings and BetterHelp. It's been episode 247. Hit subscribe below on our YouTube channel. Helps out a ton. Comment on the show. Hit the like button if you liked what you saw. And, of course, we're on all the major podcast platforms as well. Make sure you sign up for the notifications so you know when a new episode has been posted. We're about to ramp up the episode production as the season starts here, so stay tuned for that. Until then, everybody, take care and have a great work week. We'll see you soon.